You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DAHLIA, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I hope you all had an awesome Easter weekend and happy Easter Monday. So it was a really good weekend, really eventful. So glad that both pilots have been rescued. You know, interestingly, Friday and Saturday, I was telling my husband and boys, because I was really worried, and we were praying hard that they found the downed pilot. And I said, you know what they should do, which I think a lot of us were thinking, they should say they got him. Tell Iran, tell everybody we got him, so that the Iranians don't continue to look for him. Right? Celebrate the fact, whatever, distract him, or pretend that they found evidence in like another part of the country. This way they shift over and they could go get him. And then that's what I found out Saturday night. We found out, thank God, right before we went to bed, that they found the pilot, and the CIA did something like that. So I was like, yeah, the kids are like, yeah, Mom, you should work for the CIA. And I go, yeah, I'm good. So pretty happy that happened. So I was on cloud nine. So here we are with this Easter miracle of the pilot being found. You know, after, he had, he knew what to do, and he had ascended 7,000 feet to hide in a crevice. And luckily he was, had comms to speak to the U.S. And so I'm really excited about that. So I wake up and then I see Trump's tweet or Easter message to Iran. Now, I can't read the whole thing because it's full of expletives, but it's interesting, and I want to dissect it for a little bit here. Okay, so for those of you that did not see Trump's Easter message to Iran, it did the following. So the following: Tuesday will be, sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's funny. It says Tuesday should be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up into one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the, and he used the F word straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I couldn't stop laughing. At first I thought it was like a spoof, still with April Fools. But no, this was on his True Social. I don't usually scroll through True Social, but I went to verify it. And so I decided to share it with everybody, right? Because I was like, this is his message. And my first thoughts about it, because I'm kind of mixed. My first thoughts were, okay, wait a second. For him to say, open the blinking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Not something I would have advised him to do, because it looks like he's frustrated and he's mad and they got his goat. Okay, see, one thing that he has done in his speeches to us is say, guys, we're good. We don't need their oil. We don't even need to be there. We don't even need the Strait of Hormuz. We're good. So we're going to be fine no matter what. So there's this calmness and then he tells Iran and he starts yelling to open the blanket straight. It looks like, okay, he wants this to happen. Don't show your cards. Don't let Iran see that you are upset by something and they did something that has your goat, so you don't necessarily. So I thought that was not the most strategic. On the other hand, you heard people criticize, well, this doesn't sound presidential. It doesn't sound presidential. I'm already over that. He stopped sounding presidential, when he was running for office back in 2016. And at this point, for him to sound presidential, people wouldn't think that was genuine. I believe what the advantage was, because why would this now deep into a second presidency where he doesn't need to run again? What is the advantage of this? Well, one is he is a master of distraction. And so I noticed throughout his presidency, every time he would put a tweet that would get everybody to jump on or whatever, he was making moves where stuff got done. So on one end, he probably wanted everybody to be kind of talking about this while they're working on an operation. He's telling Iran it's all about the power plants and the bridges. And maybe there's another operation going on, that's attacking something even deeper. So that's probably what, could also be going on. The other thing, too, is one thing that Trump likes to do psychologically is, and I actually admire this about him, is he's hands-on. All right. One thing, if you've noticed throughout a lot of his speeches and all that, is he doesn't necessarily, say, okay, I'm just going to leave these guys to do it, or I'm going to, I'm going to go to Delaware, or I'm going to go to Martha's Vineyard, or whatever. He acts like he is in the Situation Room and he is making moves all the time. The other thing, too, is it connotes that he was working Easter weekend, right? Even if it was just to create this not so eloquent tweet or Truth Social, Truth, or whatever they call it on Truth Social. But where he's not on vacation. So when you read between the lines, he's letting Iran know Easter or no Easter, because one thing that Iran-funded terrorists do is they like to attack Israel during high holy days and holy days. Whether it was during Passover or during Shabbat, and so he's letting them know Easter or no Easter, we're on fire. And I wouldn't have worded it this way. I know people are like, oh, I can't believe people are laughing at this. I'm sorry, it's funny. You don't like me laughing at it? I'm sorry. This was pretty funny. But what's not funny is that it took us this long to deal with Iran and to deal with Iran-backed terrorism, not to mention Iran-backed Russia drones and things like that. I mean, I also pick up on this, the frustration. Trump wants to get this done and get this done fast, something that should have been done decades ago. And so that's frustrating because now we have to try to very quickly address a situation that has been going on for decades, not to mention freeing, the Iranian people. So we'll see what happens. But that's how I feel about his verbiage. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So there was a dental student at UConn who passed away in August of 2024. And he had been admitted to the ICU, and I'm sure you all have seen this story by now, where he was admitted to the hospital for, I guess, pancreatitis and other medical conditions and seizures. I don't know if it was alcohol related. I'm not exactly sure of his medical history. But what made headlines was that he only had telehealth. He did not have an actual doctor examine him. And so the family is now suing for a telehealth ICU care. Now, I'm a little shocked by this because all ICU admissions has a doctor, has a medical provider evaluate and sign off. And the staff, the ICU nurses are amazing, absolutely amazing. But to think that he had a hospital course where he didn't see an actual doctor in person is extremely concerning. And patients are thinking to themselves, what's going on here? So in this particular case, now I'll talk about what goes on. All right. Sorry about this. I got my glasses on. He was only 26 years old. He was admitted to the Bridgeport Hospital, Milford campus in Connecticut. And he was admitted to their ICU. He had to be pronounced dead, and that was even still done by telehealth, not by a doctor on site. A doctor has to be the one to call it, not a nurse, even though most of the nurses know how to, run it, and they're the ones that can identify, and they're the ones that do most of the work. A doctor has to be the one to sign the death certificate and do the exam. And the boy, his name was Connor Hilton. He was studying at UConn School of Dental Medicine. Things took a turn for the worse. He went to the hospital seeking treatment for pancreatitis and a slew of other conditions. Could have been gallstone pancreatitis, could have been a virus. We don't know. He was there for 4 hours. And according to the family in the lawsuit, he was never examined by an on-site doctor. His condition began to worsen. So the hospital said they violated hospital policy because no on-site doctor assessed him from the time he was admitted to the ICU until after he exhibited seizure-like activity at 4:30 in the morning. Instead, the hospital allegedly relied on off-site ICU providers to care for its patients. The boy slid down in bed, eyes rolled back, exhibited seizure activity, vomited, became bradycardic, heart rate slowed. Code was called. They intubated him. He could not be resuscitated, and then he was pronounced dead. And then the suit adds that the pronouncement was done by a telehealth provider on a video screen. So the family claims that the hospital never told them that the dental student had been admitted to the ICU. They said the hospital allowed for extremely poor communication among the providers responsible for his life, which is especially dangerous to patient care when the hospital is relying on off-site ICU providers to care for its patients. Now, the Bridgeport Hospital has spoken out, saying they do provide the safest and highest quality of care possible, but they have confirmed that they utilize telemedicine care and telehealth professionals. They say it enhances the treatment of critically ill patients by pairing advanced virtual monitoring with expert bedside teams. The spokesperson said, a dedicated virtual team collaborates closely with on-site nurses, physicians, and ICU intensivists to provide continuous monitoring, timely decisions, and coordinated high-quality care throughout the ICU stay. So what is going on here? So before telemedicine existed, when I was in the hospital and did training, and when you're in a teaching hospital, there's a doctor or resident, medical student, well, residents are doctors too, but medical student, round the clock in that hospital. So when you're teaching hospitals, which is why I recommend a lot of people do go to teaching hospitals, they go, but I don't want to be practiced on. Trust me, I got to tell you, there's more doctors there. There's more people on site, especially if there's a code. Teaching hospitals are some of my favorites. But I would round on them at 4 or 5 in the morning, right? Because I was, when I was a student or a resident, then I had to tell my senior what happened and then do my senior resident rounds. Then the attending would come in. So before 7, 8 a.m., I saw that patient at least 3 times. Then, after I got orders from the attending to do this, I would do that mid-morning. I would check on the patient at lunch. I would then check mid-afternoon. And then I would either, before I leave at 6 p.m. at night, check on them, or if I was on call and now I had to stay throughout the night through the next day, because back then you would do 36, 37-hour shifts. I would then see them multiple times throughout the night. If I thought I had a few minutes to get some shut-eye and go to sleep, I would round on all my patients before I went to bed, tell the staff, okay, if you need, here's a K-Rider order, here's a PRN, advanced diet is tolerated order. I would make sure all the orders were in place so I could try to get some sleep, right? So I would probably see a patient on average 8-9 times per 24-hour of my shift. And then, of course, if the shift was longer, I saw them more. And so in private hospitals, what happens? Well, it used to be if I had to admit a patient, I would then have to go on my lunch or in between my patients to the hospital to check on them. And then after I finished with patients, I would have to go back to the hospital to check on them. Things started to change where we had hospitalists, which was wonderful. Where if you're a family doc and you're not sleeping because you're getting calls from the hospital and ERs and patient, you just weren't sleeping. And if you didn't have a partner to share call, if your partner was overwhelmed and exhausted, how are you seeing patients awake the next day? You know, and the older I got, the harder it was to stay up for 36 hours. And I didn't think it gave good patient care. So we hired an there was an internist group, love his group. He was fantastic, where they would see my patients for me in the hospital. So whenever a patient was going to be admitted, when the ER called, they were immediately given the hospitalist. And these hospitalists, and they still exist, they're very vibrant groups, have doctors at every hospital. So now there's on-site doctors. So your patients and everybody gets to see a hospitalist doctor. Are they there 24/7? Well, they used to be. I don't know if that's as necessary now. Now that telemedicine has been approved as before, you could not. I remember telling a nurse, because they would call me up when I would be busy doing something, or I'd be in the OR, and they're like, well, we have somebody here in the ER, we have this. I couldn't just give orders over the phone for an admission. If every patient had to be seen, every patient has to be seen. And so when I finished in the OR or whatever, I would have to get my butt back to, trauma ER or whatever rotation I was doing. And so in private hospitals, and I don't know much about Bridgeport per se in Connecticut, but if you don't have a doctor there at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m, and it's a simple case, like the person's on a regular medical floor, they're hungry, or they're having some pain. Can I give them some breakthrough pain medication? Usually there should already be PRN orders already, but they could contact the doctor by phone and the doctor could tell them what to do. When it's ICU, however, there always has to be an exam. There always has to be somebody around, especially if there is going to be a code. And so I am a little bit shocked that you would have an operating ICU without, because even Bridgeport said we have doctors and interventionists here on site. And then we might consult with the telemedicine. Well, was there no doctor on site that weekend or that night? And so they consulted doctors over the phone with telemedicine. Now, I remember, years ago, a patient said that they were in the hospital and a robot with an iPad, kind of like what you saw in Modern Family, came in. So they were talking to the doctor by a video, and they raised their arm and they did some things and they whatever. And they didn't like that. They were like, why? I want the doctor here. And I agree. If you're examining a patient in a hospital, that my issue with telemedicine is you're relying on patients knowing what's going on and conveying, or somebody else conveying something. Now, nurses, ICU nurses, they know what they're doing. I could trust them. But for me, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, you know what? I want to check his toe, or I want to feel his, or I'm smelling something That doesn't sound, that doesn't, there's just something not right, and when I evaluate a patient in a hospital setting, one is I'm looking at their monitor, I'm looking at them, I'm smelling, I'm checking their urine, I'm looking under the sheet, checking their skin, looking for bed sores. And I understand nurses do amazing surveys, but I've picked up on things because I was in the room. It wasn't just, okay, I just want to show you what his labs were and the monitor showed. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens, but it's a tragedy. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I haven't really been watching what's been going on with the trains and the high-speed rail in California, but it's definitely the talk of the town where I live. In Las Vegas, Nevada, we had been told that we were going to eventually have a train or a high-speed rail from Las Vegas to Southern California. But originally we were told it was just going to really take us into Victorville, because from Victorville, do you need to go down to San Diego? Do you need to go to Bakersfield or Fresno? Do you need to go to LA? Do you need to go to Ventura? I mean, there's usually the main routes for those of us coming, from the I-15 is we'll either go down to San Diego or go over to LA, either hop on the 220 or the 10. Or the 210 or the 10 or the 215 or the whatever. So I didn't really have a lot of high hopes because, to get dropped off in Victorville and you still have about an hour and a half, that's without traffic. I was like, okay, I'm not too excited about that. Then the California system, I guess Gavin Newsom wants a high-speed rail from Southern California to Northern California, which to me, I think is long overdue, because in Europe, the train system is fantastic. And why are we still struggling in the United States? Well, a main reason why also was because the United States is bigger. I drove with my son, halfway up through Germany. I could drive across Germany in about 8-9 hours if I don't have to stop and pee from where we were. It probably is about 10 to 12, but from where we were able to, we could have spent a few more hours to go all the way up to Essen, where my grandmother was from, near Cologne and Bonn and all that. But you're able to drive across 3.5 hours. I was able to drive from Venice to Milan. And then 4 hour, another half hour, 45 minutes up to Lake Como. And so, you're with Europe, it's smaller geography. So you could, so if they did have to lay track, which by the way, many of that was already laid, decades and decades and decades ago. And sadly, Germany had an extensive train system, and we know why. But many countries in, England and all that, I mean, trains was not old school. It was, and they're still being used, and they're a fantastic form of transportation. And I'm a big fan. I love taking the trains in Europe. It's cheap. It's expensive to get to Europe, but once you get there, it's cheaper than America. So you're looking at, California, and you're looking at commerce and all that. Why not have a high-speed rail? Why not have train system? Now, we have Amtrak, and we do have extensive train systems, but people use their car more because they have cars, and it's allows more flexibility, but I really do believe we underutilize trains. But one of the issues I guess they're having is that it's going to cost $126 billion to finish this line from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And according to the New York Post, that is more money than, I guess, Amtrak has ever received from the federal government since it was established in 1971. That's according to 60 Minutes. So $126 billion to finish this line. Now, I get it. It's going to be a high-speed rail. So we're not talking about typical trains. We're talking about a high-speed, higher-tech sort of, mode of transportation. But that's a lot. Now, I guess voters were told that it was going to be $33 billion, not $126 billion. We're talking about billion, not million. And this was started back in 2008. How did it go from 33? How did it, multiply by 4? Quadruple. So the idea of a sleek sub 3-hour ride has now been delayed, downsized, very expensive. And the earliest projected opening would be 2033. And what we're being told is there's barely any tracks laid, except there was a segment that runs between Bakersfield and Merced. So, in nearby Fresno, you could see, that's kind of near Fresno, Merced, and that's more central. The locals call the project a Stonehenge. And, I'm not here to talk about high-speed trains and all that, but my issue that we keep seeing, whether it's the medical infrastructure in California or, all these promises Obama made for Obamacare and all that, is there's no accountability. We keep on allowing our representatives and congressmen and senators and city councils and whatever to approve this, and nothing ever seems to get done. Or when it does get done, it takes forever. It's interesting because one thing that moves fast where I live in Southern Nevada, which I like, is sports teams coming. I mean, we have Vegas Golden Knights. We have now the Raiders. We're now the Las Vegas Raiders. The Oakland A's are coming. We're going to change the name to that. We have we're going to get now an NBA team. We have a WNBA, and we're going to now the Aces, and now we're going to get a men's NBA. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty damn exciting. And those things seem to move quicker. Why? Well, because there's government entities involved, and there's more, shall we say, skin in the game from the NBA or from the NFL or whatever, and this is why when they talk about privatizing the TSA or unprivatizing medicine and moving it more towards government control, I don't want the government controlling anything more than they have to, because they don't do it well, and it's slow and it's frustrating. Yeah, I mean, working with Medicare and Medicaid as a doctor was so tedious, so time consuming, and we wouldn't get paid. I mean, and at one point they said, they made us do direct deposit where they deposited the money directly. So no money was there. I showed them, but they gave us EOB statement saying, oh, yeah, you got all this money. And like, no, we didn't. Okay, I know you said you paid. Where did it go? We didn't get paid. When did we get paid? And they never paid us. Yeah, and people wonder why I closed my office. You can only do so much medicine with no money coming in. You got to pay staff and you got to pay rent. So I could have probably lasted one more year, but I went to teach. And so this high-speed rail, is maybe not the biggest story in the world, but it does remind us that we are allowing our legislators and our governors or whatever to, well, we're going to fund this, we're going to fund this, we're going to fund this, and then it doesn't get done. When it doesn't get done, okay, where's all that money that, that went into it originally? What the contracting, the bid, development of the area, and how many billions have been spent, and we still don't have what we need. See, I like the idea of a high-speed rail because if there are issues in terms of medical care and not enough staff, and you need hospital, like for example, in New York, some people might have to go to Sloan Kettering, or in Minnesota, people may have to go to the Mayo Clinic, or some people may, and we have a lot of issues as it pertains to, people not living in areas where they could go to CHOP in Philadelphia for their child's medical care or something. I want to know that there's increased access where now even through train, we could get where we need to go so we could get people to certain medical facilities. We're not going to be able to have every center in the country a number one cancer center or a number one pediatric cancer center or Parkinson's or dementia or Alzheimer's. We're not going to be able to have in every single location, but every state should hopefully have very decent and good resources. The problem is with a state like California where it takes hours. It's, so I support this. It's just I don't like what they're spending. I don't like the fact that it's not getting done. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme. The solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So congratulations to the UCLA Bruins women's basketball team. I was following their final. I've been following their season as well. I'm really getting into college basketball. I really like men's college basketball, but I've been watching these women. Boy, can these women play. And UCLA was able to best the South Carolina Gamecocks 79-51. And where I'm going to go now is where I saw, unfortunately, social media went. And many of them were talking surrounding players and if they were intersex, old term hermaphrodite, And if some of the players in women's basketball have, shall we say, not a completely traditional XX chromosome, genotype and karyotype. And it's a conversation that I see keeps coming up. And as I told you, before, intersex. I think intersex. Former term is a hermaphrodite, where a child is born with both male and female body parts. Is anywhere between 0.5 to 1% of the average population. 7 out of, I think, 1,500 female athletes are considered, so that's a little bit of a higher percentage, considered to possibly be intersex. And unlike transgender is where somebody is born XY, biologically male, and decides to transition to the XX and go through extensive work and extensive hormone manipulation in order to be well, they can't convert to XX, you can't do that, but to be gender and societally identified and respected as female, but they're biologically male. Intersex is a little different. There's a variety of different ways intersex can happen, but with intersex, the child is born with development with both, shall we say, sex characteristics. And so with, let's say, a child born with both female genitalia and like, let's say we have a child with a vagina, but we also on ultrasound find that they have testes, or they have, scrotum in a vagina. We will address the testes so they can't turn cancerous, because men need to monitor and check for masses, and a woman can't if the testicles are up. And if they're undescended, there's a higher risk of cancer. So we usually will remove the testicles, address cosmetically so their female genitalia looks more like female genitalia, and they will be raised as a girl because they're easier to assimilate in terms of society as female than male. Now, things might change now that things have changed, but when I was training in the 90s, it was easier for a hermaphrodite, or now called intersex, child to assimilate as a girl. Some of them may become very, very tall. Some of them may still have male characteristics, but many of them will not be able to have kids. They will have fertility issues, and I feel bad for them because they didn't choose to have that. And they are not dealt the easiest hand, but, many of them may excel in sports. And I support that. I do. I support that. However, there was a lot of discussions, as I saw online, is it fair? Now, what the Olympics is doing is the Olympics is going to mandate genetic SRY testing. They're doing that to check for Y chromosomes. Now, not all hermaphrodites or now intersex may have the Y chromosome. So I believe only 10% of true intersex, ovotesticular disorder of sex development, will have an SRY gene issue. 10% may, but many of them are XX. So when people say, are the Olympics going to be ruling? Are they going to be finding them? They're looking more for individuals that have Y. They could swab with saliva, cheek, blood samples, and they only want biological females eligible. A biological female can still be one who is XX and intersex, where they also have, some male body parts. And so that's why I support intersex still being in the sport if they have been always raised as a girl there. But, I know many people are concerned about the testing of it because if, let's say, you want to be on the women's basketball team and support Team USA, and you get tested and they come to find out that you have this abnormality, there's not a lot of privacy. And so you see people talking about how, well, some people might purposefully now decline being on the USA Olympic team. Why? Is it because they're not biologically female? And so it's one of those things where we wouldn't be in this situation where some innocent people can now be hurt if we didn't have such lack of common sense when it came to biological males being in female sports. Because transgender individuals, right, have, transgender men or transgender biological men identified as female came into women's sports and then completely squashed the records. Now it's okay. Well, we have women's and men's categories. The whole purpose of us having women's categories is so they have a chance to compete against other women. And what does that do for women's and their progress if they have to again be faced with the fact that they can't compete against the men and they'll completely lose? So I understand and I do support the Olympics doing screening to ensure that somebody is not pretending or not taking advantage of the situation. But if you have a child that might have never been told by their parents because their parents didn't understand the situation where they had both male and female genitalia, so things were cosmetically addressed so that child would not get picked on in PE when you had to take showers together, etc., and not have cancer risk, some individuals might not understand that they might not pass this test. And that's why I said last week, for those of you in women's sports where you've kind of been concerned, about, if, maybe there could be that chance and your parents don't have a lot of information or you were adopted, you might want to get your own screening privately because I don't know how public this is going to be. You would think it would be private, but if you have, the announcement, of the USA women's teams of for the various events to compete in LA, and everybody sees, who's on the team, they're all excited for you. Now you go in for your testing and you are disqualified, even if it's privately, people are going to, you're not going to have that privacy. And I really do believe that there's a lot of individuals out there that might not know. Do I think any of the female players recently who have been excelling, are true hermaphrodites or intersex or whatever? I'm not here to, I'm not their physicians. I'm not here to judge or guess. But are there a large number of female athletes who have excelled that might have been born with? Yeah. Because they say the incidence is 7 out of every 1,500, 7 out of every 1,000 or 1,500. So it's something where I think female athletes, if they want to be in the Olympics, they might want to test. They might want to know themselves anyway, and then figure out how to keep whatever they want of their own medical history private. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.